I brought something terrible to school. But my dead teacher saved me. My name is Ryan. For 15 years, I told everyone that I almost died in high school. The truth is, someone else almost did. I was 16 when my life completely fell apart. Every morning I walked into Jefferson High knowing someone would make my day miserable. Sometimes they'd trip me in the hallway. Sometimes they'd dump my books into the trash. Sometimes they'd laugh while teachers pretended not to notice. Eventually, I stopped believing anyone cared. Except one person. My English teacher, Mr. Bennett. He never treated me like a loser. Whenever things became too much, he'd quietly say, "Come sit in my classroom." We'd talk about books, movies, life, anything except the pain I carried every day. He once told me something I never forgot. The people hurting you today won't even matter 10 years from now. Back then, I didn't believe him. Then, everything got worse. Mr. Bennett suddenly stopped coming to school. The principal said he was seriously ill. Without him, I had nowhere to hide. The bullying became brutal. Someone spray-painted "freak" across my locker. Another day, someone slipped a dead bird into my backpack. Nobody admitted it. Nobody cared. That Friday morning, I reached my breaking point. I skipped breakfast. I barely slept. I stuffed a heavy metal object into my backpack. Not because I wanted revenge anymore, but because I honestly didn't think I wanted to survive another day. As I walked through the front doors, everything felt strangely quiet. Like the whole school had gone underwater. That's when I heard a familiar voice. "Ryan." I froze. Mr. Bennett stood outside room 214. Smiling. Exactly like always. "Come inside." I couldn't believe it. "Weren't you sick?" He smiled. "I've missed enough classes already." Inside his classroom, the lights flickered softly. The room felt colder than usual. He looked at me for a long moment. Then quietly asked, "What are you carrying?" I couldn't answer. My hands started shaking. For the first time in months, I cried. Really cried. I told him everything. The bullying. The loneliness. The fear. The thoughts I hadn't told anyone. He never interrupted. When I finally finished, he simply reached out his hand. "You don't need to carry this anymore." Without thinking, I handed him the object from my backpack. He wrapped it inside his old leather satchel. Then looked me in the eyes. "You still have a future, Ryan. I promise." When I left his classroom, I felt lighter. Like something inside me had finally broken free. I walked into first period. 10 minutes later, the principal's voice echoed through every classroom. "Students, it is with great sadness that we announce Mr. Daniel Bennett passed away peacefully last night at 9:17 p.m. My heart stopped. The room spun. That wasn't possible. I had spoken to him less than 15 minutes earlier. After school, I ran back to room 214. The classroom was locked. Empty. Covered in dust. The janitor looked confused. "Nobody's been in there since yesterday." I never told anyone. Who would have believed me? 15 years passed. Last winter, I attended a school reunion. An old display case had been built near the library. Inside was Mr. Bennett's worn leather satchel. The exact same one. My hands began trembling. A small note sat beside it. Donated by Mr. Bennett's family. Everything inside remained exactly as it was on the night he passed away. The principal unlocked the case for me. Inside the bag, there was only one thing. A folded piece of paper. Written in Mr. Bennett's handwriting. It said, "Ryan. I'm glad you chose tomorrow." I never told him my name that morning. And that's the part that still keeps me awake at night. My student submitted a history project. I wish I had never watched it. Teaching history sounds interesting. It isn't. After 18 years in the classroom, most assignments are exactly the same. Students interview grandparents, record old family memories, and tell stories about growing up before smartphones existed. Every June, I sit alone in my office with a cup of coffee and spend hours watching those recordings. Most of them are painfully boring. This year, one project changed everything. The student's name was Emma Carter. Quiet. Polite. Always sat in the back row. Her project came in a plain white envelope. Inside were 2 USB drives. One was labeled, History Interview. The other simply said, Watch this last. I assumed she'd accidentally included an extra file. I plugged in the first drive. The video opened inside what looked like an old farmhouse. Emma sat across from her elderly grandfather. He looked exhausted. Not physically, mentally. She smiled nervously. Grandpa, what's the oldest memory you've never told anyone? The old man stared at the floor for several seconds. I've told everyone the official story. He finally looked into the camera. But I've never told the truth. That immediately caught my attention. According to him, 50 years earlier he had worked on a government restoration team assigned to clean and reopen an abandoned boarding school deep in the mountains. The school had been empty for decades. Nobody knew exactly why it had closed. Locals refused to go near it. They called it, the Silent School. His crew laughed at the rumors. Until they entered the building. Everything inside looked wrong. Desks were still perfectly arranged. Books remained open on every table. Lunch trays still sat inside the cafeteria. It looked as though everyone had simply disappeared in the middle of the day. Then they reached the basement. Hidden behind a collapsed storage shelf, they found a small wooden door. Locked from the outside. Someone had nailed it shut. When they forced it open, they discovered a tiny room. Inside, there was only one chair. One lantern. And an old reel-to-reel tape recorder. The tape was still inside. One worker joked, "Let's hear what ghost stories are on this thing." They played it. The recording began with children's laughter. Then, a teacher calmly taking attendance. Everything sounded completely normal. Until every child answered, except one. The teacher called the missing student's name again. Silence. Then, a tiny voice came through the speaker. Not from inside the classroom. From somewhere much closer to the microphone. "I'm still here." The room on the recording became completely silent. No one spoke. For almost 30 seconds. Then, the tape ended. Emma looked confused. "That's all?" Her grandfather slowly shook his head. "No." He whispered. "That's where we stopped listening." The video ended. I sat there frozen. It was easily the strangest history project I'd ever watched. Then I remembered the second USB drive. I opened it. No video. Only audio. Emma's voice filled the speakers. "If you're hearing this, Grandpa made me promise not to tell anyone. But after the interview, something happened." She sounded terrified. "We left his house around sunset. When we got home, Grandpa called." She paused. "He asked why I took the tape recorder." Another pause. "I told him we never brought one home." Silence. Then, she played the phone recording. Her grandfather sounded completely panicked. I locked that recorder back inside the basement. His breathing became heavier. "But it's sitting on my kitchen table." The call suddenly cut off. The police found Grandpa's house the next morning. He was gone. The doors were locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry. They never found him. Another long silence. Then, a new sound began playing. Static. very faint. Almost impossible to hear. I turned my speakers all the way up. At first, it sounded like broken radio noise. Then, I realized it was children whispering together. Over and over. The exact same sentence. "Teacher, someone is still absent." The audio ended. I sat perfectly still. My office suddenly felt much colder. I shut my laptop and locked both USB drives inside my desk drawer. The next morning, they were gone. No broken lock. No missing paperwork. Only the drives had disappeared. I asked Emma about them. She looked confused. What USB drives? She insisted she'd only submitted a written report. I checked the grading system. There was no video project attached to her name. No interview. No audio. Nothing. Even stranger, there was no student named Emma Carter in any of my class lists. I searched every enrollment record going back 5 years. Nothing. Sometimes, late in the evening, after every student has gone home, I walk past the empty history classroom. And every now and then, I hear a child quietly whisper behind the closed door, "Teacher, someone is still missing." I never open that door anymore. The bus driver refused to tell us what he saw on Highway 16. Until that night. I was 13 when our school took us on an overnight trip into the mountains. There were 21 students. 1 teacher. And a bus driver named Mr. Harris. He wasn't very talkative. The kind of man who kept both hands on the steering wheel and only spoke when necessary. It was raining hard. The road twisted through miles of empty forest. To pass the time, someone shouted, "Tell us a scary story." The whole bus joined in. Mr. Harris smiled for the first time. "I know one," he said. "But nobody who's heard it has ever forgotten it." Everyone laughed. Even the teacher rolled her eyes. "Go ahead." Mr. Harris looked into the rearview mirror. "You have one chance to change your minds." Nobody did. He nodded. "Fine. This isn't a ghost story. It's something that really happened to me." The bus became silent. When I was 23, I drove this same highway. Almost every night. One winter evening, I saw a little girl standing beside the road. She was barefoot. Wearing a white raincoat. I stopped. I asked if she needed help. She smiled, and pointed into the trees. She said, "My family is waiting." I grabbed my flashlight, and followed her. I only walked for 30 seconds. When I looked back, my bus was gone. Nobody laughed anymore. Mr. Harris continued. I searched for hours. No road. No lights. Nothing. Just forest. Then I heard an engine. I thought someone had found me. But when I reached the road, my bus was exactly where I'd left it. The passengers were gone. Every student leaned forward. I called the police. They searched for 3 days. They never found a single person. The rain outside grew heavier. The windshield wipers squeaked. One student finally asked, "What happened to the little girl?" Mr. Harris didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked into the mirror. Very slowly. Then whispered, "I've been driving this road every year since. Because every winter, she comes back." A nervous laugh echoed through the bus. Someone muttered, "Good one." Mr. Harris didn't smile. I wasn't joking. At that exact moment, the headlights caught something. A small figure. Standing perfectly still beside the highway. White raincoat. Bare feet. The bus erupted into screams. Our teacher stood up. "Keep driving." Mr. Harris slammed on the brakes. "No." He whispered. "She's closer than before." The doors suddenly unlocked by themselves. A cold wind rushed inside. The lights flickered. Then, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital the next morning. The police said our bus had been found in a ditch. There were no skid marks. No signs of another vehicle. Mr. Harris was sitting behind the wheel. Dead. His face frozen in absolute terror. The investigators blamed the rain. They said he'd lost control. But none of us believed them. Because every student remembered seeing the little girl. Except one. My best friend Alex. He'd slept through the entire trip wearing headphones. He never saw her. Never heard the story. Years passed. Nobody from that bus ever talked about what happened. Last winter, I received a package with no return address. Inside, was an old bus driver's badge. And a handwritten note. It read, "I'm retiring. Highway 16 still needs someone to drive the last route. She only waves at empty buses, until someone stops." There was no signature. Just one faded photograph. It showed our bus, parked on the side of Highway 16. Taken the night of the accident. Every student was visible through the windows. Including me. Except, standing beside the driver's seat, was the little girl, smiling directly at the camera. And that's impossible. Because, the police said nobody ever found footprints outside the bus.